2024 meeting.
All right.
Member Alexander. Alternate D'Erico.
Here.
Member Gonzalez.
Here.
Member Pfeffer. Alternate Zaletos.
Here.
Vice Chair Cardo.
Here.
Chair Burke.
Here. Good evening. We will begin with the approval of the minutes and the agenda, starting with the minutes for September 18, 2024. Is there a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Second, anyone?
I'll second.
Very good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So approved. Next minutes will be October 16, 2024. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Aye. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So approved. I assume there's no presentation of awards or reports for this evening? Is there any public forum? No? Okay. No old business. We will begin with new business. Resolution number 2024-57, granting a variance to permit the development of a single-family dwelling on an existing 50-foot wide lot with an area of 5,000 square feet within the R1 single-family zoning district located at 3394 St. James Avenue. Good evening.
Good evening. Planning and Zoning Board, my name is Jonathan Knight, for the record. As stated, I'm presenting a variance for 3394 St. James Avenue. The applicant is requesting a variance to waive the requirements for minimum lot size and width to allow for the construction of a single-family residence. As stated, the property is located at 3394 St. James Avenue and is within the R1 single-family zoning district. The property is currently surrounded by single-family houses. The property was originally platted in the 1920s and then replatted again in the 1960s, which it was excluded from the Deltona Lakes Unit 35. Circled on the right is lots 15 and 16, excluded from the replat. As stated, the neighborhood is exclusively single-family and the lot is surrounded by currently constructed homes. Construction of a single-family residence is in alignment with the current zoning as well as the future land use of the neighborhood. Matters of consideration, we consider that this proposal is in alignment with Chapter 110-307 and 110-1103. Special conditions exist and they are not because of the applicant. The proposal is harmonic with the neighborhood and future land use. So based on the decision-making criteria, staff supports this variance based on the following. The development shall comply with a R1 standards aside from the minimum lot size and width. A building permit application shall be submitted, reviewed, and approved by the building department. And the applicant shall not construct any accessory structures based on the size constraints accepted with this variance. Do I have any questions?
Thank you. Are there any questions from the panel from my right? None? Do you have any? Any questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, member, proceed.
Hi, Jonathan. Thank you. Nice job. So just a question. So the owner purchased the lot in 2023?
Correct.
Knowing that the lot at the time didn't meet the minimum building requirements?
That was not made aware of at the time.
But they were not made aware of it at the time?
To my understanding, no, ma'am.
Okay. And I know on one of your slides you indicated that the neighboring dwellings were developed between 1988 and 2002. Did any of the other dwellings need a variance? Because I think I saw, it said it was a comparable lot size, but when I look at that photo, it does visibly look much smaller than the surrounding lots.
Correct. Could you restate the question?
Yeah, I know, I kind of rambled over that, I'm sorry. Did the other homes, the surrounding homes, also need a variance? Or
No, ma'am.
Okay. And then I have one other question, I'm sorry, so if we go to the aerial slide that actually had the one right before. Thank you, appreciate it. If this residence is built, because it seems like it's a pretty good-sized home that they're putting on that lot, what would the clearance then be on either side? Or I should focus on, I think it's 3370. What would the clearance then be from the residence that is being built to the property line, and then also to the residence that is located on 3370? Do we know that?
They proposed a 6-foot setback, which is in alignment with the current code.
So that's a 6-foot setback
From the property line.
from the property line of the neighbor at 33, or from the neighbor at 3370?
No, it would,
No.
from the property line, 6 feet. From the house, it would be even more.
So the sides are 6 feet.
Yes, from the side.
All right, that's all, thank you, that was all I had for now.
Thank you.
Dr. Pfeffer, do you have any questions?
I mean, it's a bizarre-shaped lot, or at least the way it fits with the rest of it. And it's inconceivable to me that when somebody bought the house, that wasn't looked at. I mean,
The applicant is available if you would like to speak with them regarding that matter.
I'm sorry, say it again.
The applicant is available if you'd like to speak with them regarding that matter. But to my knowledge, they were not aware of this.
I mean, how can you not be aware of it? I mean,
My understanding is the purchaser, the buyer, was a developer. It was purchased by an investment company. Is that correct?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, we can ask the applicant.
It's the user, the end user.
Pardon me?
It's the end user that bought it, the person that's going to build and live there.
To my understanding.
I mean,
I have another question. Oh, go ahead.
I didn't finish, that's all.
You're up, Dr. Pfeffer.
I kind of agree with Tara that the wording is deceptive in the sense that it's, it states that it's sort of like all the other lots, and that's not true.
No, it was
I mean, it's far
excluded from
different
the
than all other
replat.
lots.
Pardon me?
It's far different than all the other lots. And, when you say,
Quite smaller.
yeah, it's also that, in your statement of hardship, it says that there weren't any special needs. There weren't any special needs created by the applicant. Actually, there was, because they bought it. I mean, it wasn't the original 1925 or wherever this thing was developed. That wasn't a special need at that time. It's only a special need right now when they want to build in too small of a lot.
What was the question, sir?
I think it was more of a comment. It was a statement.
Understood.
My question is, I'm complaining about the wording of the city's write-up that basically makes it sound like it's very routine, and this isn't routine at all.
So any questions for the city, for the staff at all?
I have another question.
So from my understanding, there are multiple lots that have been excluded from replats when Deltona Lakes was replatted. So this is not uncommon within the city of Deltona.
Probably not. So the land to the right, the 3350 land, does 3350 own all that land behind it?
Yes, sir.
And the land behind it, that 3500, is that their land?
Yes, sir.
So all of those are pretty large lots for do they have any, are they having any do we have people that are objecting on that or something? Okay, so that'll come up then. Okay, that was my question, how much it encroaches on the other individuals. So apparently that'll come up here, so.
We can hear from the applicant, but we should have sworn in the witnesses, especially if we're going to have public discussion.
Madam Chair, this is not a quasi-judicial proceeding tonight, so there's no need to do a swearing in.
All right, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll hear from the applicant at this time.
Good evening, ladies and
evening.
gentlemen of the board. Thank you for having us. Excuse me. My name is Robert Edwards. I am co-owner of RP Property Investments with my wife here, Precious Edwards.
Can you speak up?
Thank you.
Sorry about that. My name is Robert Edwards. I'm the owner of RP Property Investments, co-owner with my wife here, Precious Edwards, and we'd be glad to field any questions that you all may have.
And you are the owner? You are the owner of the property?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Are you actually the owner? Have you closed on it and everything?
Yes. So what happened is we actually purchased this property at a tax deed auction, which it appears that this property has been up for tax deed purchase on several occasions. And so what we are attempting to do now is to allow that cycle to stop by putting a single-family residence there to, one, increase the taxes, but also solidify this piece of property that was left out of, I guess, various plot maps when Deltona was being developed, and secure that piece of property now so it doesn't continue to have this situation with turnover and tax issues.
So you won't be living there? You'll be selling it?
Yes.
So it is an investment property? Okay. No biggie.
You may proceed. You ready?
Yes, thank you. Do you have an architect that's drawn plans for the house that's going to go on that lot? And if so, what's the square footage?
So we currently have not started that process yet, but we have actually been approached by reputable developers. One, D.R. Horton, that's interested in the property, who has done homes to the size on these lots and various other communities. Again, we understand that Deltona is different. It has its own set of standards, but 5,000 square foot lots, I believe, actually in Arbor Lakes, that's a Deltona community as well, actually has 5,000 square foot property. So homes can be constructed on these pieces of property without encroaching or doing anything on the homeowner's existing lots. And as Jonathan, put it, the only variance that we're requesting is to be able to build on a smaller lot. We're going to fulfill all the setbacks that are set in the R1 code already and put a house there. So to your point, we do not have a plan yet, but as Jonathan put, any plan that we have will be strenuously scrutinized through the permitting and board process and go from there. So.
Does this lot have access to sanitary sewer? Are you going to have to do a septic system?
Yes, and I've already reached out to some septic companies that have advised us on the square footage that would be needed for that, which fits into the lot as well. I didn't see it in his write-up, but we had placed that in our letter of intent, so I believe that is an attachment to the information that you all have been provided.
Have you already reached out to engineering about getting a curb cut for the driveway?
Again, we have not done that. If those are things that we need to do, we can definitely do that and present that to the permitting as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, ma'am.
I'm curious to know why one of the, there we go. I'm just curious as to why one of the neighbors wouldn't have purchased that property to retain the natural buffers that are there rather than throwing another house so close, since it's such a small lot. Has that been talked about, considered?
That is one thing that I've considered. However, we don't know everybody's financial positions. I mean, these neighbors or the neighbors there might not be in a position to purchase a lot. We have had, my wife is a realtor, she has had a sign there for over the last 8-9 months. So neighbors were aware that that piece of property was for sale. I'm quite sure, again, there's been various owners prior to us that have also owned the property. So I'm not sure how long they've lived there, but I believe that if they were interested or had the ability to purchase that land, they would have reached out and tried to do that.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Dr. Boswell?
You mentioned that someplace in Deltona there's other small lots. But for our consideration, I mean, it's this neighborhood we're concerned with property values in the neighborhood and stuff. I mean, I look at the map, and at least there's 50 houses or whatever that are, larger lots. I mean, this is like almost a garage to one of the other houses. I mean, I'm interested from the town. I forgot to ask the question of why you raised the issue of there are other places in Deltona that have small lots or smaller lots, but I don't see why that's relevant here, because it's this neighborhood that we should consider.
I only brought it up because there are multiple lots throughout Deltona that were left out of the Deltona Lakes plat that are the same size. So there are other lots that have the same issue. That was the only reason that we brought it up.
Not necessarily in this neighborhood.
Any other questions? Well, thank
No,
you,
ma'am.
sir. I think that's it as far as questions from the board.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
We will now entertain any public comments that may be, can you?
Yes,
up.
Garrett Kabanoff.
Can you please state your name and your address?
Yes, Garrett Kabanoff, 2331 St. Augustine Street. I am one of the backing houses. You can see where the T is. I'm on the north side of that. A couple things that I have concerns about. Initially, one of the deciding factors for us purchasing that property was that we were backing up to a small property that could not be built on. So we did not have the expectation of having a residence built back there. We have natural drainage. We have wildlife, such as gopher tortoise that is living on the property. So just something that we never considered having built behind us. The owner mentioned having a real estate sign out there for the last year. That is true. The value on that property was too large to even invest in as somebody that's a neighbor. And not building any residence on there, it seemed like a moot point to even purchase the property. Some of the other concerns that we have are HB 1379 with the new septic requirements. I wonder if the Department of Health has even been made aware of septic going in on this, what the drainage field would be, and how large that would be, where the placement would be in correlation to the other houses around us. I hear mentions of other properties being that small, but given the size of the location and all of the other properties that are listed around it, I just don't see how putting a house on such a small property is going to benefit us locally. One, I mentioned the drainage, but also property value and having noise in our backyard that we didn't have before. This property has existed technically since 1925. Nobody else has tried to apply for a variance. And to me, I understand the variance is an option, but I don't quite understand how a variance would be allowed, given that the set rules of 7,400 square feet minimum property line or square footage of the property are already set in the Planning and Zoning Board. So I just don't see how going back on that rule is something that we're going to do today. I think those are all the points that I've got. There is a fire hydrant on the front of this property. I don't know how that affects building and zoning as well. It's the only fire hydrant that's accessible for that entire circle of houses that you see on this property. And then I guess the main thing is the intent of this property. Seeing that we are an investment firm and that we bought this with the intent of flipping it, knowing that we couldn't put a property on the size of 5,000 square foot, I feel like should be taken into consideration. I don't see how, as an investment, we knew buying this property wasn't something we could build on, so the only alternative instead of selling it is to ask for a variance. This isn't a hardship. This isn't a main home. This isn't something that they're going to keep. The intent is to either rent it or flip it. I just don't see granting the variance today to allow for that to happen. We've got enough property in Deltona. We've seen massive growth in the last couple of years with all the businesses that have come in. There's plenty of other places that are going up, plenty of other neighborhoods that have gone up. I don't see the need for another house on our block. That's all I've got for you guys.
Any questions from the panel? You may be, sir.
I have a question. Can you restate your address and tell us where you are in relationship to the subject site?
Yes, I'm 2331.
we can't see those numbers really, so it's hard.
The one with the cars in the
Well,
driveway?
you know,
On the top,
I see.
third from the left.
So your property line does not abut the subject property?
Does not technically back up to the actual property line, but I feel like the map is a little deceiving on square footage and depth. We're saying that the depth of that property is about 50 feet, is that correct? 100 feet, so we're talking about a 75-foot difference between where my property line backs up to where the other property line is. So we're talking 1 yard. Less square footage between us than what he's asking to build on.
Okay, thank you.
Do you mind if I ask you what square footage your house has?
Square footage of my house is roughly 1,900 or 2,000, and
Okay.
I'm on about a quarter of an acre.
And is that about the average of all those homes around there?
Yeah, I would say about the same. Property sizes are about a quarter to a half, and the average houses around there are about 2,000 square feet.
Yeah. And you're all the way up there, but you are concerned, do you have septic?
I do have septic.
So everybody around that
The
whole
entire
has
neighborhood is septic, yeah. We've also got flooding issues that have happened with the last couple hurricanes, drainage
Well, that's
concerns.
that's going to happen.
Yeah.
One little more house isn't going to affect that anymore, I don't think. But that's my personal opinion. But I just had the same question she did. So your property isn't even, you look, that's fine. That's all I have.
Any others? Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comments? No?
I do have a question for the applicant, another question for the applicant, if I may. Why do you said you were going to looking at a 5,000 square foot house?
No, sir. No, sir.
No, what did you say?
So what
You
the
keep it in the
footprint-
average?
The footprint that we have is 1,700, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, sir, your house is a two-story house, correct?
That's pretty much the whole lot's the
Right, but there's
5,000.
two-story houses there, I know, on that back end there, so even if you did a two-story, it would increase the size of square footage. But the footprint that we are suggesting is 1,700 square feet, give or take. It may be smaller. That is the maximum size, though. And I believe the requirements there, we couldn't cover 35% of it, and I think that sets it right at about 32 if we were to go that big.
And which direction is the variance going? To the right, to the?
The width. So the width is 50 feet.
Right.
Depth is 100. The only thing that we're missing is 25 feet on the width. Everything else, as far as the setbacks are concerned in the R1 code, we can meet.
So you'd keep the same length?
Correct.
You just wanting to make it a little wider? And the folks that are to the right there, they're
Well,
not?
actually, not make it a little wider because that's their property. What we're
I was
doing
gonna
is
say,
we're-
don't they-
will the
that's
city
their line.
allow us to build, again, on a 50 by 100 lot and grant us that variance. That's the only concession we need the city to make, is to say, you all can present plans to us to build a home, single-family home, on a 50 by 100 lot. And again, Arbor Lakes, not Arbor Lakes, but there's a community there that has that variance. I believe it's a R1AA. Arbor Ridge is it, R1AA, that has 50 by 100 lots on it here in the city of Deltona.
And if I understand correctly, your setbacks will be more generous than the code requires it?
Yes,
The front and the rear?
yes,
The front being 35 feet, so to sit back further
from the actual street.
from the street.
Yes.
And it will have a backyard of no greater than 20 feet, from the setback of 20 feet.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else you want to add at this point?
No, thank you all again for your
Thank
time.
you.
Thank you.
I believe I read where you couldn't add anything else. You can't put a shed or a
Correct, no.
pool
No,
or
sir.
anything on this,
It'll be a
right?
two-car garage, single-family home.
Okay.
That's it.
Does anyone want to make a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion that the Planning and Zoning Board approve resolution number 2024-57 for a variance to reduce the minimum lot size requirements to allow development on an existing 50-foot wide lot with an area of plus or minus 0.11 acres within the R1 single-family zoning district located at 3394 St. James Avenue within the city of Deltona.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Can you add with the conditions that were stated?
With the conditions that staff outlined.
Okay.
We don't need to do a roll call on this. We could do, you want a roll call? Okay, proceed.
Member Alexander,
Yes, approval.
alternate Dierico,
No.
member Gonzalez,
Yes.
member Pfeffer,
No.
alternate Zlatos,
I vote no.
Vice Chair Cardo,
Yes.
Chair Burke.
Yes.
That's 4-3
In favor
in favor.
of the motion. It's 4-3 in favor of the motion.
In favor of the motion. Motion passed.
Thank you. The next matter on the agenda for today is Resolution 2024-65, granting a variance to allow for an increase in the maximum lot coverage to accommodate an approximate 798 square foot in-ground pool, deck, and screen enclosure on an approximate 7,209 square foot lot within the R1 single-family residential zoning classification located at 3469 Berkshire Terrace.
Good evening, Planning and Zoning Board. Brandon Hatch, Planner 1 for the record.
Good evening.
Tonight, we are here to discuss resolution number 2024-65 for variance application VAR 24-0009. To provide some background information, the site address is going to be 3469 Berkshire Woods Terrace here in Deltona. The property is approximately 0.16 acres located in the R1 Arbor Ridge zoning district with a future land use of residential, and the home was built in 2017 in the Unit 5 phase of Arbor Ridge. This is an aerial of the property at 3469 Berkshire Woods Terrace to provide some background on what the property currently looks like, as well as the surrounding areas. The variance request, the applicant is requesting a variance to allow for an increase in maximum lot coverage. The current land development code allows a maximum lot coverage of 35%. The applicant is requesting a variance to increase that from 35% to 44% to accommodate a 798 square foot accessory structure, and we are going to talk about that accessory structure in just a moment. This is a survey of the current conditions of the property. The property in total is 7,209 square feet. The home on the property is 2,376 square feet with an additional rear patio that you can see at the rear of the home that is 170 square feet. If we take the home and we add that to the patio square footage, that gets us the current lot coverage of 2,546 square feet, or 35% of the lot square footage. This is the proposed accessory structure. It's proposed to be an in-ground pool, a deck, and then a screen enclosure to encompass the whole thing. The length of this accessory structure is planned to be 20 foot and 2 inches with a width of 39 feet and 7 inches. If we multiply the length times the width, that gets us our total proposed square footage of 798 square feet. This is how it's going to be proposed on the property. Do note they do plan on removing that 170 square foot patio that they currently have in the rear, and then having the proposed accessory structure encompass the whole rear end of the property, as you can see on that survey. As I mentioned, the lot square footage is 7,209 square feet, and the home with the proposed accessory structure will span a lot coverage of 3,174 square feet, or 44%. So some matters of consideration to highlight, LDC Chapter 110-307. Currently, the property does comply with 110-307. However, with this proposed accessory structure, it would result in the property being over the allowed maximum lot coverage, hence why they're applying for a variance for it. There was a previous variance in Arbor Ridge to allow for a lot increase for maximum lot coverage. However, this was applied for by the home developer in the Unit 4 phase, and that was an increase of 35% to 40%. So it doesn't necessarily apply to this current home, seeing that it is in the Unit 5 phase of Arbor Ridge compared to the Unit 4 phase. Additionally, LDC Chapter 110-1103, seeing that this is a proposed accessory structure and both this property as well as the surrounding area do have to comply with the LDC requirement for maximum lot coverage of 35%. Staff doesn't necessarily see it as a hardship, seeing that all the surrounding areas do also have to comply with the same maximum lot coverage. And additionally, with this, there may be potential negative impacts, seeing that this would be going above the maximum lot coverage of the property, and the whole surrounding area was developed based upon that 35% lot coverage maximum. With this, our staff recommendation, based on decision-making criteria, staff supports the Planning and Zoning Board recommending the City Commission deny Resolution Number 2024-65, granting a variance for the maximum lot coverage increase. Thank you for your time, and I'll now be accepting any questions you may have. The applicant is also here with me, so I'd be more than happy to invite him up after the questions are finished from myself.
Maybe see.
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
In calculating your maximum impervious surface ratio, you don't include the driveway. Why not?
So referring to lot coverage doesn't include the driveway, but our impervious calculations do. The impervious for the property does comply, whether it be currently or with the proposed. However, Section 110-827B1D does state that private swimming pools are to be considered as accessory buildings and structures, hence why we include it within lot coverage.
So your 35% requirement is for FAR, not ISR, correct? Your floor area ratio?
Even though 110-307 doesn't grant or say FAR, basically yes, ma'am, correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I? Thank you. Thank you, Brendan. Nice job.
Thank you.
Couple questions. I'm sure that doesn't surprise you. So I think I heard you say that there was an increase that was approved that the developer applied for that was done in Phase 4?
Correct. Phase 4, and that was done
But that was up to 40%. So this would exceed even that?
Correct, yes, ma'am. And that was done in 2007 prior to that development, of course, occurring.
Okay. My next question is, how much would the accessory structure need to be reduced to meet the current requirements?
So here, I'll move over to the current conditions. So
I'll let you do the math.
For sure, no, definitely. So yeah, so going back to the current conditions, so if you see here, obviously the home being at 2376, that is rather close to the 35%, and I apologize, I'll do the math really quickly on that. So if we take that 7209, we times that by our 35%, that gets us 2523. If we remove the home square footage from that, that gets us 147 square feet, give or take. So technically, the current lot coverage is 35.3%.
Without the assessed, that's just with the home?
Correct. Currently, yes. Now, the home with the patio, correct, yes, ma'am.
So they can't put any accessory structure on this lot without tripping the threshold for maximum ratio, right?
Correct. Not at the current state unless they'd like to reduce the home, but of course that'd be a different conversation.
Yeah, and it looks like to me, because this home does look significantly larger than the homes in the area, so yeah, the home is taking up the majority of the lot size.
Correct, yes, ma'am. And I did do the calculations for both homes next to them. Obviously, you can see one of them has a pool, the other one doesn't. Both of them do currently comply. The neighboring properties are also slightly larger as well.
Okay, great, thank
Is
you.
that an above-ground pool or in-ground?
That's an above-ground pool.
And that's not normally typically in the calculations, is it?
It still would count towards lot coverage, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You had, you said the previous variance, and it went up to 40%. Is the 4% difference the reason that staff is denying it? Only because of that? Would they have approved it up to 40%?
Well, so for our recommendation, seeing that the overall surrounding areas also, at least for the Unit 5 Phase 2, have to comply with that 35%, and seeing that's only for one property compared to, all of the rest of the surrounding properties, staff still would have recommended the same.
Even if it was only 40%, you just don't think it should be past the 35, is what you're...
Well, it's one of those things where, compared to if we're looking at like the hardship base of it and seeing that also the surrounding properties all are at that 35%, potentially if we increase the lot coverage for that one property,
Everybody's going to want to do it.
Potentially, yes, sir.
But the reality is you haven't had any variances from other residents within that surrounding area.
Correct, yes,
And
ma'am.
in fact, Unit 4 is pretty close to Phase 5. And so someone may cross the street or down the block who had the benefit of a variance because the developer decided to go for a variance in that situation. Now these folks that came afterwards don't have that benefit because the developer didn't act on their behalf. And in fact, if I read the record correct, there were applications for variances with the first Unit 4 that then came back before the committee after the variances were granted. So there were exceptions. It was en masse, unlike this one person. So this one person comes along and can't get a variance for a pool, but in fact, the developer was able to do it for people in the same subdivision, same zoning,
Multiple.
R1. So is there any reason why you didn't consider, because this is a question.
Sure.
Is there any reason why you didn't consider that prior variance of 40% of special circumstances that will allow to at least meet your first criteria, and then definitely to even argue the second criteria, that this action wasn't brought on by him because there are other residents or other homeowners who have the benefit of the 40%, and he's not allowed that because that developer didn't do it for him in that particular circumstances.
Would you mind restating the question, Chair Burke?
Is there any reason why you didn't consider the fact that there was a 40% variance in the same subdivision, which is also the same zoning, not a special condition or circumstances, so that it meets the criteria of the variance requirements?
So I would like to state, we've had multiple houses or lots that have come in from this subdivision who've wanted to do an in-ground pool, and we've told them that it goes over the lot coverage. So we've already told them that they could not do it.
Okay, so there have been other requests from other homeowners?
They have not applied for a variance, but told them that they are over the lot coverage.
Is this one, two, several?
It's been several over the years.
Okay. Several years or several over the years?
Several over the years.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, may I?
Sure, you may.
When did the current homeowner purchase this residence? Do we know? 2017 from the builder, okay. And so these were built in 2017?
Correct.
So you've lived there this entire time with, okay, thank you. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion, if there are no other questions.
Actually, I'd like to hear from the applicant.
Yeah, there's
Yes,
more
ma'am.
questions. No, there's more questions.
No, yes, ma'am.
Want to hear from the homeowner,
Yes, I'd like to hear from the homeowner.
please?
Let's hear from the homeowner, because I might still have questions for the city. I'm perplexed on this one.
Thank you, staff.
You have for the city? Staff, I'm
Oh,
sorry. Can you come
sorry.
back? I'm sorry.
Can you go back to the aerial, please?
Yes, sir.
Not that one, the one that shows the whole neighborhood.
The whole neighborhood. I don't believe I had a picture in the PowerPoint for the whole neighborhood.
Well, if you look
It's
at the...
Appendix A, are you talking about the other surrounding area, plots?
About the location maps in the notebook?
I'm talking about this baby.
Oh, yeah, you have it. You showed this, didn't you?
I didn't have that one in the presentation, but it was included in the attachments.
I mean, if you look at it and you look at the neighborhood, there aren't any other pools. And the reason there aren't any other pools is basically because of the lot coverage. So, I mean, we're opening ourselves up for, one, a flood of variances, and two, we're not being consistent if we let this go. So, I mean, I just don't see how we could approve this.
Well, why don't you pose a question to him, and then we can have discussion among the board members after we've heard everybody. So do you have a question for the city, for the staff?
I guess not.
I don't
No,
discourage you. This is a perfect time to ask him of any questions you may have.
Madam Chair, may I?
Sure. Sure.
Just reading through these, that there was it was a little confusing that the council, first it said it didn't approve it, and then it said it, whereas they did approve it. Here we go, resolution, 24. It says, whereas the city council finds that granting the request of variance is not warranted because the application does not meet the criteria for granting it required by section blah, blah. Whereas staff recommended denial, whereas public notice was provided, whereas the city council finds that the proposed variance is consistent with the city's code and comprehensive plan. I'm confused.
Excuse me, through the chair, if I may address that question.
Yes, please.
In order for this approval to be legal, the City Commission would need to find that it is consistent with our comp plan and our zoning. However, based on staff's review of the hardship criteria in the code that is laid out, the variance would not be warranted. However, the commission and the board have the discretion to override that determination if they do believe that it is consistent with the comp plan and the zoning code.
If, is that what you said? I'm sorry, did you say if? If they find?
Yes.
Did they approve it, is I guess my main question.
No, sir. The Planning and Zoning Board sees these before they go to the commission.
Well, I realize that. That's why I was also confused. Why would they have already said that?
I'm seeing that, Eric.
This is, you see a resolution that is drafted for the
Yeah, I know it's not
commission.
signed or anything. I was just curious if something happened even in the past. There wasn't a date or anything on this,
But there is a resolution number 2007-46, which was the resolution that granted the 40% for the Unit 4 that's in here. It's unsigned and undated. Is that what you're referencing?
yeah.
Okay, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, in here, it says subdivision phases 4 and 5. Well, 4 and 5 wasn't, I didn't think, based on the fact it came into existence 2017, wasn't even around then, but I don't think we have to make that determination at this point. Let me ask you this. Are you saying, is it pretty much the staff's, the city's position that...
Yeah, excuse me, sorry to interrupt. I do want to clarify that for the board, that the applicant has quoted a resolution in his letter of intent. So that is incorporated in his letter of intent. That is not part of the staff package as entered into the record.
Thank you for that clarification. That's helpful. Is it the staff's position and that there is no hardship to the applicant in this regard because he purchased a home which had a 35% limitation and he has to fall within that limitation?
Yes, ma'am.
And I kind of looked at it a little differently. You know, we all can. My thinking, and tell me if this is something that has been considered, that the hardship here is the fact that he lives in a neighborhood in a subdivision where some residents were given a 40% variance, and he is not. So I look at it, the hardship is on him because he has less restriction in use of his property in a subdivision where other people have the right to enjoy, have more reasonable use of their land. I guess that's contrary to what the staff's position is. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, but I understand where you're coming from, though, I do.
All right. Any other questions for the staff?
Maybe a
Ma'am.
comment on what you just said, but if he could live with the 40%, it might be more consistent with the ruling for the other neighborhood.
Yeah, I was about the same.
Would you like me to invite the applicant?
Yes, why don't we have the applicant come up?
Good
evening. Can you
Good
state
evening,
your name?
everyone. Jacob Schneff. I'm the current owner of 3469 Berkshire Woods Terrace. I'll try not to repeat too much and be brief up here, but just to a couple of the points, lot coverage is important for flooding and other items. My home is 75 feet above elevation. I also won't impact any of the setback requirements with my neighbors. The variance of the 40% that we discussed earlier, that impacts over 100 homes. I have to drive past these homes to get to my house. I can stand in my driveway and I can see a house right down the road on the same street that has an in-ground pool that's allowed to build on 40%, but I am not. If we look at Unit 5 of the neighborhood, you can actually see that my lot is unique because it is much smaller. The surrounding lots within 3,000 feet are 38% larger than mine. They would not require a variance. There's only one lot within that distance that's smaller than mine. So I think the fear of getting a lot of variance requests, I don't find merit in that because they wouldn't need one. They could build this pool without seeking a variance. And I'm willing to be flexible. I want to do this legally, I want to do it the right way, and I want to work with the city and the board to find a compromise that works for everyone.
Any questions from the board?
What compromises would you suggest? Do you have any that you would be willing to propose?
Well, to be honest, when I first submitted this, I didn't know about the 40% variance of my neighbors, and I would be more than happy with 40%.
Thank you.
What's the size of your home? I mean, it might be in here, but I don't remember off the
I
top
think
of
it's
my head.
around 1,800 square feet, and then it's also unique because it's a one-story, so that takes up a larger footprint on the lot and leaves less space to build on.
The homes next to you, are those 2 stories or 1 story?
Yeah, those are two-story homes.
Okay, so your footprint is bigger than,
Yes.
because we're looking at the site, and it does show that your house takes up more of the area, and that's because it's a one-level home.
Would it make sense to table this until he has an opportunity to talk to the pool company to find out if he can even do 40%? I mean, what's that going to do to the pool? And really, the pool company is the only one that can tell you what dimensions your pool will need to be to stay within 40%. So does it make sense that we table the application till the next meeting so he has an opportunity to meet with the pool company?
And I have talked to the pool company about potential outcomes of this meeting, and if 40% was granted, that would be sufficient space to build a pool.
Oh, so you already have that information from your pool company?
Yes, I don't have a vectoring of it,
Right.
because we were waiting for this meeting, but that would give us enough space.
So they could make that work?
Yes.
Okay.
Basically shrink everything, the concrete, the pool, everything.
Yes.
Is that 170 square foot porch, is that part of, did I understand that that was going to be removed?
Yes.
So is that going to be part of the pool footprint?
It would essentially become the deck.
It's part of that
around.
798 square foot
Yes.
that was in the, okay.
And I believe it would actually be less than the 798 because the surface water only counts as half a square foot for pools.
Repeat that again?
The surface of the water of the pool would only count as half a square foot for lot coverage requirements, so it would be even less than that number.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah.
Okay, proceed, please.
That lot,
Can you please speak into your mic?
Pull your mic to you, or turn it on.
does the pool meet the back lot? Just
Setback?
Yes, it meets the offset requirements on both sides and the rear.
Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Well, let me ask you one question. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
Oh, I think I covered it all.
Okay, well, thank you.
I hope we can reach a compromise and figure out something that works best for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Very good.
I'd like to make a motion that the Planning and Zoning Board approve Resolution Number 2024-65, a variance to increase the maximum lot coverage to accommodate a reduced square footage in-ground pool up to a maximum of 40% on the .16 acre property located at 3469 Berkshire Woods Terrace within the R1 Single Family Residential Zoning District.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Does the board need to discuss anything? So we can have a roll call.
Member Alexander?
Yes, I approve.
Alternate D'Erico?
Yes.
Member Gonzalez?
Yes.
Member Pfeffer?
You guys are softies, but yes.
Alternate Zlatos?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cardo?
Yes.
Chair Burke?
Yes.
7-0, motion passed.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. That brings us to the next matter on the agenda, which is, keep losing my papers, which is Resolution 2024-42, granting a conditional use to permit a quick service oil change facility within the C1 Retail Commercial District for a property located at 3150 Highland Boulevard. Good evening.
Good evening, Jessica and Schlissel for the record. We're going to be going over conditional use request for 3150 Howland Boulevard. 3150 Howland Boulevard came before you guys earlier this year for a rezone. It was originally zoned office residential. We rezoned it to C1 for this type of use. It was known when it went to commission that it would be an oil change facility. This is an aerial of the property. It is right next to the Dunkin' Donuts off of Howland Boulevard.
The other Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
What'd you say, I'm sorry?
The other Dunkin' Donuts.
Yes.
Where would the stacks be?
She's going to get.
I'll get to that. All right, as stated before, this did come before you guys as a rezone earlier this year to allow the quick change oil facility as well as a 5,000 square foot retail building. And the retail commercial zoning C1 does require a conditional use for a quick change oil facility, and it will come back to staff for a final site plan. What you guys are going to see soon for the concept plan is just a concept plan. And the matters of consideration, it is currently zoned C1, which does allow for the automobile service station type A by conditional use. They will provide automotive services to residents. It conforms with Land Development Code Section 110.315 and 110.817. The oil change facility average daily trips will be 120, and the 5,000 square foot retail building should have an average of 441. Once it has an actual use, we could have a better number for that. So the total daily trips for it would be 561 trips. This is the conceptual plan. The residential homes to the north will have the following between their homes and uses the use proposed. There will be a 70-foot power easement. There's also a 15-foot landscape buffer with a 29-foot pond area. So this is a total of 114 feet from the residential homes in the rear. And then based on decision-making criteria, staff supports the Planning and Zoning Board recommending the City Commission approve resolution number 2024-42, granting a conditional use for a quick service oil change facility to be located at 3150 Howland Boulevard with the following conditions. The oil change facility shall have 2 spaces per service bay for queuing instead of the required 3. All work must be conducted indoors. No outdoor activities are permitted on site. All materials used for the business shall be stored inside the building. All solid waste shall be disposed in the required dumpster. All oil and other fluids shall be stored in containers approved for such fluids and shall be disposed of or recycled as required by law. A monument signage and building signage will be reviewed and approved under a separate permit. Mechanical equipment, electrical meter, and service components and similar utility devices, whether ground level, wall mounted, shall be screened from view. All required building permits shall be obtained prior to any work being performed. All such permits shall be subject to the controlling provisions of law applicable thereto and the fee schedule associated therein. If city staff and the property owner are unable to agree to the details of the development order, the matter will be submitted to the Planning and Zoning Board for a resolution at a public hearing, and the matter will be abdicated by means of a development order or denial of development order thereto. Are there any questions?
Yes, ma'am. The 5,000 square foot building, how are you planning on calculating the parking required if we don't know what's going in there?
The parking required goes by our code, which just states it's going to be a retail building, so it has to have 4.44 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet.
So no restaurants?
Correct.
Okay. So the uses, would they need to be stipulated somewhere? Are they going to be stipulated as part of your approval?
So there were uses that the building could not be in the rezone, but there are not any for here because it would have to be a retail type use because that's what we would be approving during the final site plan.
So if it's an allowable use within the C1 zoning classification, it would be allowed in the retail building?
Correct, as long as it follows the rules that were approved with the rezone.
Okay, which excludes restaurants.
I would have to look that back up. I know it excludes certain types of stores. I do know that part.
Okay, and the applicant is okay with that?
They were, we did the rezone, that was part of the rezone approval, but the applicant is here if you'd like to speak with them.
Okay, I'm just wondering if staff had that conversation with the applicant so that he or the applicant is aware of the restriction to the uses that will be allowed to go in the retail building. Because assuming that the retail building is going to be owned and operated by the applicant, right? And did staff have that conversation with the applicant?
We had the conversation with them previously with going through this as well as the rezone, and then we'll have that conversation again with the final site plan.
Very good. Thank you.
Other questions?
Yes, ma'am.
You may proceed.
Jessica, I think I heard you say 4.4 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet for the retail, and it was a 5,000 square foot retail, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So that would be about 22 parking spots?
Yes.
Are those the only parking spots we're seeing in the front, though?
You have some in the front, the rear, and right in front of the retail building.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry, I had one more question.
Sure.
If I might be confusing this with something else, but is this, was this the applicant that actually provided a list the last time of what he committed to that would not be going in the retail store? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anything else? That's it? Thank you, Jessica. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's hard to follow, at least for me, but if there's overflow, because there's only 2 parking spaces per bay, where will it go?
So there's 2 queuing spaces behind the person that's already being serviced. Because it is a quick service oil change, typically you're in and out pretty fast. But I can refer to the applicant because we have gone over it with them and there is adequate space.
No, I mean, really, I don't understand. You have to count on the fact that there might be an overflow. Possible. Where will they park?
There is adequate parking in case they would have to park.
I mean, because it's absolutely unacceptable that anything goes onto Holland.
Correct. There is room within the area to park.
Through the chair.
In other words, they just have to park somewhere and wait. And I'm sure they're going to be thrilled if all 3 of those bays were filled with 2 stacks each and all the time. But if somebody else came in, they'd have to park in one of the other spots and wait.
Come back.
Or come back, yeah.
I mean, where did we get the 3-car requirement?
What was the basis for that?
One in the bay and 2 stacking behind it, or for 3 bays. That's from
I mean,
my,
in the code,
From
there's some
9.
requirement that we're giving a variance to, and I was wondering if that requirement was...
Can you please talk in the mic? Can you please talk in the mic?
Through the chair, I'd just like to address that the application before us tonight is for a conditional use. It is not for a variance. So there is not a variance requested. This is a conditional use.
Right.
Permitting one of the enumerated uses, a quick change oil facility under the C1 retail category.
We understand.
Those conversations, or we already had those conversations previously, we came about stacking in the bales.
We did? That was a couple of years ago?
No, this year.
That was the other oil.
This is, I think the board understands that we're dealing with a conditional use. Although, in granting conditional use, I would think there's factors we can consider, but I'm not advocating that at this point. But I understand it's a conditional use.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify for the record.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Also, why did you feel necessary to have that last condition? I haven't really seen it before, where if you couldn't reach an agreement with the person, you'd come back. Do you have any reason for that to be there?
So if we are unable to agree with anything with the development order, the applicant they would have to come to you guys.
No, I realize that. I'm just saying, why did you put it on this one and never on any other conditional use? I don't recall seeing that before.
No, it is a new one that we're adding. The other 2 that you saw were variances, so they wouldn't have to have a development order. This one would have a development order that staff has to review with the final site plan.
So if that changes, if they can't agree to that, it would need to come back up.
Yeah, I know, but have you ever seen it before?
No,
It would be kind of like an appeal. They would be coming to you guys for the appeal.
We're improving our process as we go along. So that is something new. We haven't seen it before.
Correct. That's why I was asking why.
Yeah. I assume you're just making sure there's a process by which the matter can be resolved, and it's set forth, and it's clear that everything in the conditional use is based on the fact that they all agree. If they don't agree, then it comes back for us. It's just a clear way to delineate the process.
So we'll always see that going forward now?
Yes.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions for Jessica?
I'm looking, but I didn't see. What are the type of retail stores that it's part of the conditional use or the categories? I didn't remember hearing.
The uses that are not allowed there? Is that what you're asking? Or the uses that can go there?
The retail center, or the retail building for retail sales?
You're looking for the list?
What kind of stores?
Are not allowed or are allowed?
No, I heard about not allowed, but yeah, what other conditions in that? What kind of stores is it opened for?
It could be plenty of different things.
There's
There's a lot of things. It could be a laundromat. It could be
Whatever's in demand, I guess.
a
but
bakery.
allowed.
It could be many different things.
Yeah, okay. All right.
All right, thank you. Can we hear from the applicant at this time? Good evening.
Good evening.
Can you please state your name?
My name is Bill Barfield. My office is 225 South Westmont, Suite 2040, Altamont Springs, Florida. I represent the applicant. As your counsel indicated, this is just a request for a conditional use. It's a use contemplated within the zoning category of C1, provided it's approved by this board and the commission. Site plan issues such as parking and those things will happen at a different time. The property, as explained, there's a large buffer between the adjoining neighborhood. The C1 is really consistent with everything up and down Howland Boulevard. The use of the quick change oil change facility, it's a non-intrusive type of mechanical business. The majority of their work is done underground in pits. They are highly regulated industry. This particular company, all of their materials are stored in vats that are within a containment area. They dispose of nothing. It's all recycled, and it comes in by a licensed recycling company that pumps all that oil out. So it's not a situation where there would be a risk of hazardous materials being spilled in the area. Aside from that, I'll take any questions, other questions which you may have.
So how familiar are you with the operations of the oil change facility with regards to where on the building is the port for the truck to come in and attach the pumping hose?
I can't tell you that. I can tell you it would probably be, I don't want to guess. I would think it would be in the loading zone area, but I don't want to guess. I wouldn't tell you something that I'm not 100% true or positive of.
So if they did use the loading zone, then they would have to do something about the sidewalk there, right, to keep pedestrians from?
Yes.
Okay. Jessica said you mentioned that we're going to have this come before us again?
No, final site plans get approved internally with staff.
Okay. Thank you.
Relating to your question, this is a franchise, right? It's going to be a franchise oil change.
I don't know whether this is a company store or a franchise. I drafted.
Well, I guess I don't mean specifically the franchisee will own it, but it is a. No,
it is a national
what's the name
change.
of it?
It's Take 5 Oil Change.
Take 5, right? Okay, which is so they've been through this.
They
as
have.
far as
They have.
They have a footprint that they use pretty much.
They
probably.
do.
And for that, okay, yeah, for that, getting the oil and stuff.
Dr. Pfeiffer?
Are there any curb cut issues between the Dunkin' Donuts and this facility?
I don't believe so.
The curb cuts are looked at by Volusia County when it did a rezone, and there is cross access to Duncan for this. It'll be completely looked at again during the final site plan, but there is cross access to Duncan.
Anything else? No? Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Too fast to even get it.
Any discussion that the board wants to partake in on this resolution?
No, ma'am.
Anyone have a motion for the board? We're hearing you out, huh?
Yeah. Somebody else want to take a turn?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Getting there.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that the Planning and Zoning Board approve the resolution number 2024-42, granting the conditional use located at the property of 3150 Howland Boulevard, along with the conditions that the staff has recommended. The following conditions listed.
Second.
Member Alexander?
Yes.
Alternate Dierico?
Yes.
Member Gonzalez?
Yes.
Member Pfeffer?
Yes.
Alternate Zlatos?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cardo?
Yes.
Chair Burke?
Yes.
7-0. Motion in favor.
Well, thank you. The next matter on the agenda is an ordinance 18-2024, amending the zoning code, Chapter 70 of General Provisions, amending Section 70-30, definitions and other terms used in Section 1110-310, RM1, multiple family residential, and Section 110-311, RM2, multiple family residential, to include additional standards, amending Chapter 76, Affordable Housing of Land Development Code relating to affordable housing regulations and the Live Local Act. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Board. This evening, we're here to talk about the Live Local Act. During the 2023 legislative session, the Florida legislature adopted and the governor signed into law Chapter 2023-17, known as the Live Local Act. during the 2024 legislative session, the Florida legislature adopted and the governor signed into law Chapter 2024-188, amending provisions of the Live Local Act, which passed during the 2024 regular session. The amendment of the act required the city to define terms and update regulations for multifamily developments and establish equitable regulations for mixed-use, mixed-income developments. On January 16, 2024, the City Commission approved Ordinance Number 4-2024. However, revisions to the ordinance to clarify the act consistent with regulations and preemptions under the act to further the public health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Deltona are necessary. The act permits the city to apply its multifamily regulations to affordable housing developments, except for height, density, and zoning. The following sections were amended in your packets: Section 70-30, definitions for terms used in Florida statutes and other terms used in Section 110-310 and Section 110-311 multifamily. We amended Section 110-321 to add statutory uses pursuant to the Live Local Act, and we amended Section 110-311 and 110-310 multifamily residential districts to include additional standards and requirements for multifamily developments. We also modified Chapter 76, Affordable Housing, to establish procedures and regulations to implement Florida statutes for development of statutorily authorized mixed-use residential, including affordable housing. We identified applicable zoning districts, excluding PUD zoning districts or any area subject to a development agreement addressing zoning or land use. We established procedures for administrative approval of qualifying developments. We established site development standards, and we included an expiration date consistent with Florida statute. Available for any questions.
Jordan, can you repeat that? No, I'm just kidding.
Way to summarize.
Are you finished with your presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any questions?
What's the expiration date?
Yes.
I didn't think there was one,
I didn't see one.
2030, October 1st, 2033.
2033?
Correct. And that's per Florida statute.
I'll be darned.
And so we still comply with Chapter 76, but we just cleaned up language to clean up the approval process,
Let me start. I'm sorry. I thought you had finished.
Do we have any applications that are currently under review by staff under this Live Local Act?
Oh, boy. It's coming down the pike.
We have one application that the city is currently reviewing.
And it'll be...
And the application does not come before the Planning or Zoning Board or City Commission.
It does not?
It does not.
The Live Local Act.
I have a question, may I ask? Are you done? I'm sorry, ma'am.
No, I hadn't started, but you can proceed.
Maybe I should know this, but can you define pour door development practices? What does pour door mean?
It talks about everybody going in the same location instead of different doors for different income levels.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I have some easy questions, and it may be quite simple, or maybe I'm just not following. I'm just looking at the sequence, how you're listing and labeling your paragraphs. In particular, 'cause I'm a little confused. In particular, if we were to go to page 19 of 30, I see how you started off with the procedures, E. And then we talk about the application process, the pre-application meeting, the site plan submittal, which is 3, which is on 19. And then we go to 4, which is, if approved by the administrative official, they shall issue a written approval letter. All right? So we got the various stages of that process. But if we look at D, which is before that on page 20, Or we look at C, the Development Review Committee shall review the application package. And then we proceed with 1, 2, and 3. Then the next section is D, and then we had A and B. So our sequence, to me, unless I'm missing it, I kind of went back and forth, is kind of off. What's the difference between the 1 and 2 and then the A and B? And then when you go to 4, which is the approval letter, you're at 4, well, E is actually the process, but then it starts with 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So I'm just not sure if that's inadvertence, is that by design?
Madam Chair, that's a Scribner's error that we can correct.
Okay, so there is, all right, that was just, I said that was the easy question that I was presenting. One of my other concerns, though, I don't think our role is to really get into some of this in details, but certain things stick out to me that I think should be addressed. One is the reference to one charging system in this day and age. And I know it says the minimum, which means they can do more, but are we really serving our citizens well if we're only requiring folks that are coming in only putting in one charging station, when the reality is that I think 25 to 30% of the cars that are sold in 2023 were electrical? Is that something that was considered in drafting these regulations?
What page are you on, Madam Chair?
Let me see. It's on page 26 of 30. And it says a minimum of one electric vehicle charging station must be provided for a development requiring more than 50 parking spots. So not even getting into that criteria of 50 parking spots.
Staff will take any recommendation that this board provides, and we'll present that to the commission.
Can you repeat yourself? I'm talking to Mike.
I'm sorry. I said staff will take any recommendation from this board. If you want to increase that number, then staff will consider that and bring it to the commission.
Okay. I actually didn't have a number in mind, but it's just struck me as being insufficient and not forward-thinking, and that if we wanted to serve our citizens, we would do better. So I don't know if there's something you guys can consider, and it's just a comment by me. I mean, I don't want to artificially put a number there because I haven't researched it. I haven't looked at it. Excuse me?
Can they word it somehow to make provision for more if necessary?
Can you please speak into the
Probably needs to
mic?
be defined.
Do we need to define? Yeah, I guess the question is, you want
It can't
definition.
be open-ended. I think they're looking, because the point of this is they're looking to clarify, so they want definition.
Right.
Well, I'm just curious if there are standards that are out there, maybe take a look at that.
Staff will look at other codes and see what other municipalities have as a requirement.
So we could approve conditionally that the staff look further into increasing the number of electrical charge units.
Correct. Staff will fix the Scrivener's error and then look at increasing the number of electrical vehicles.
The way I'm reading it, correct me if I'm wrong, is the charging station serves 2 parking spaces.
Right.
And you've got 1 charging station for every 50 parking spaces. So 48 of those 50 are for
Is that a
fossil
correct
fuel
reading?
cars, and 2 of them would be designated for electric.
Is that a correct reading? Because my thinking was for every 50, that it was only a requirement if there were 50 parking spots in the facility, in the area. So not that you would get one for every 50, but for every development that had 50 parking spots, then there was at least a minimum of 1. Can you explain that to us?
I think you're reading G, but I think of what I'm hearing Chair say is that if it's under 50 spots, then that means there would be no charging stations.
That is correct.
Maybe it's just a wording change.
Yeah.
If we had 2 spaces that are electric for every 50,
That's a lot.
So it's a minimum of 1 electric vehicle charging station for more than 50 parking spaces, and then the charging station shall serve 2 parking spaces. So staff can clean up that language for you.
That's something I can consider.
I think the recommendation of the
Doing the research and see, because I don't see a lot of people around here buying electric Teslas and electric vehicles, especially with the hurricanes and how quickly the grid goes down. So
Well, the trend is, I don't know what Deltona is doing, but however, the reality of U.S., the sales are increasing, not as fast as maybe some would like, maybe too fast than others would like, but people are buying electrical cars. And if we're going to serve the community, we need to make sure we do it sufficiently. But, I'm open to let the staff follow up on that and to look into it, to address it. I just know that I think one is insufficient. And if there's any other suggestion from any board member, I would entertain it or suggest.
I have a question.
What's that?
Am I reading this right, that the requirements for this affordable housing is going to also require high-end commercial Class A office and amenities such as splash pad, gymnasium, play doggy runs, flex office space, pool?
Yes.
Is that what we're changing this to? Am I reading?
So what we're changing is we're saying that multifamily development, let me start over. Any live local project has to follow our multifamily development. So we're modifying our multifamily development to require
commercial.
mixed use and amenities, correct?
Which kind of defeats the live local concept. It was mostly designed to try and allow more affordable housing, was it not?
In the city of Deltona, since we have less than 8% commercial and industrial, any live local project must be mixed use. So this is our way for the city to ensure mixed use developments.
It's some pretty high standards on the Class A offices, like what you see in Lake Mary with marble floors, and it even gets into the interiors and such. I get the concept, but I think it seems kind of contrary to the, obviously, what the independent, so they're basically designing a town center. If someone wants to build apartments from here on out, they've got to have the commercial element and all that, which is nice. It's like the Colonial Town Square, Winter Park Village, those type of locations, those type of build-outs, which are very nice. There's no question about it. But that's going to, if they're trying to limit it, they're going to accomplish that. That's fine. That's all right.
Anything else? Anyone?
Yes, I have an additional question. Can you tell me what you consider a patio home?
Yeah.
I'm on page 5. Multifamily residential dwelling, subsection E, dimensional requirements, the chart, first column, single-family patio homes. What exactly is a patio home?
So we're not making any changes to patio homes or single-family residential. We're only making changes to the multifamily and Chapter 76.
So my curiosity is that the very first item on the list is minimum lot size in areas 3,500 square feet. We just had to approve a variance for someone to put a house on a 5,000 square foot lot, and why are we at 3,500 here?
Dimensional requirement.
I'd have to look at our code. Is that
Madam Chair, this is within the multifamily zoning district. The items that we considered earlier tonight were within the single-family district, so that's why you're seeing different requirements as far as lot coverage and lot size.
That's why I started with what is a patio home?
Yes, so essentially a patio home is most akin to a townhouse or a condo. However, they're normally single-story, where you see normally townhouses are multi-story.
So a villa-type single-story where there's multiple units?
Yes, that's
more
correct.
Than two, more than a duplex, maybe 3 or 4, all sharing a common interior wall, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And in that case, that's why the lot size would be 3,500 square feet?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I have, the whole purpose of what we're dealing with here is the Affordable Act, right? And on page 21, it talks about affordability commitment and what penalty that the property owner would bear if it did not comply with the provisions dealing with affordability. And the fine here is $300 per day. And I'm just thinking, if you had an apartment and you charge $300 a day for 30 days, that's $9,000 a month. Is that really a significant penalty for someone who's not doing that which they're supposed to be doing? And I assume
That does not go to the occupant, that goes to the developer.
right, the developer. So
Right, if they're not complying with the affordability.
are y'all giving the developers incentives to put these affordable houses in place?
The city is not giving any incentives.
They have no incentive.
This is,
So why would they do it?
Madam Chair, this is, again, in the context of the Live Local Act, which applies specifically to the development of affordable housing.
Correct.
So a development following the Live Local Act is required to be affordable. Essentially, this penalty goes to if they engage in their development, start the construction, and then no longer offer their units as affordable. So this would be a penalty to a developer who has essentially gone back on their promise.
I understand that point, but I question whether the penalty is a deterrence, because it's not severe enough.
Yeah.
People are making money. It's easy to say, oh, I'm going to do it, and then not do it, and then the penalty, $9,000 a month, to me is not a lot of money. Yeah.
We can
then you're not really
confirm
dealing with the affordability.
we can confirm within the statute if we are allowed to levy a higher penalty, and if so, make that
Where did the
recommendation.
300 come from? Did it come from looking at other ordinances, other cities or counties, or
yes,
do you know?
correct.
And that's what they're using?
There
The
was a range,
300?
correct, yes.
Was that the average or
That was
the
more
norm?
than average,
That was average?
yes.
Yeah, excuse me? Page 21, the last two sentences. It just seems that it's no penalty at all to me. I mean, I'm not rich, and $9,000 will hurt coming out my pocket, but a developer who's developing property and doing all of this, to me, a $9,000 a month penalty is not a real penalty at all. I had another grammatic correction on page 22 of 30, line 776, I believe. There's a D missing from the word "and." I think that's what it's supposed to read.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I know it's in here, but somewhere, what is the percentage that the developer has to allow to be affordable housing?
40%.
40% of the total, not counting the commercial that you would require.
Correct.
But 40% of the residential units have to be affordable housing.
Correct.
Nobody will be able to afford to build it.
We're jumping all over, but we just, as these questions come up, because I'm getting ready to go into another direction. I'm on page 21 again, and I'm looking at 5. The decision by the administrative official may be appealed to the Planning and Zoning Board pursuant to Chapter 74 within 30 days. What is Chapter 74? We don't mention Chapter 74 anywhere else in this section. Should there be something identifying it more than just Chapter 74? Because I have no idea what that is referencing.
Do you want me to answer that? Chapter 74 is administration, that's how we review our projects. It's actually being redone. It will come before you guys next month.
Okay.
We are redoing the appeal process, and that's what it's referring to.
Can they just put a little bit more, other than just Chapter 74, identify what the name of it is, and, anything that makes it just clearer to someone who's looking up and trying to follow the procedure? I think that would be helpful.
Can do.
Sure.
And the other thing, in regards to the Planning and Zoning Board, is there any identification or is there a development of a appeal procedure for us? Is there criteria? Are there going to be anything, regulations governing how the Zoning and Planning Board is to address and handle these matters?
I'm going to defer to legal on that.
No, here it is.
So your code, I believe, already provides for an appeal procedure. My understanding from staff is that those procedures are going to be updated. Those will be coming before you, so you will soon have updated procedures.
Okay, so that's the reference to the 74?
Yes.
Chapter 74, okay. That's why I think if we could just put a little bit more language in there as opposed to just 74, I think it might be.
We can certainly include the title of the section in order to direct.
If I saw anything with administrative act or anything that would identify something that was appeal process, then I would have naturally gone there. But because it's blanket, it kind of dropped off. All right, thank you.
I have a question. Are there designated areas or lots that are available for this project, or can it be everywhere and anywhere?
So
Can designate.
Live Local is permitted on property that is zoned commercial or industrial. So any property within the city that is zoned commercial or industrial, that's Live Local is permitted.
City can't not allow it under the Live Local Act. These include houses on commercial, industrial.
So we're not voting whether we're going to be accepting this or not. We're just because we have no choice. We have to take it. And we're just, what are we voting on then? The language?
So we already have this in our code. We're just making updates to it and cleaning it up.
Yes, this is clarifying language to our multifamily development code.
I don't like it.
The Live Local Act is already a preemption to local regulation. However, we can apply our local code as to multifamily. So this is just cleaning up and clarifying our code to present development standards.
And as I read your memorandum to us, you say that the staff recommends approval of the ordinance. So we are recommending, I guess, to the city commissioners approval of this ordinance. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. Anything else, guys, ladies? No? Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that the Planning and Zoning suggests the City Commission approve proposed ordinance number 02-2025. Do I need to read the whole thing out, or is that sufficient?
That should be sufficient. However, if you would also include in your motion as amended per the direction.
As recommended by the Planning and Zoning Board.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Member Alexander?
Yes.
Alternate Dierico?
Yes.
Member Gonzalez?
Yes.
Member Pfeffer? Alternate Zlatos?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cardo?
Yes.
Chair Burke?
Yes.
7-0, motion passed.
Thank you. Any staff comments at this time?
Yes, on December 16th, we are having our final workshop for our comprehensive plan. It's, December 16th, it's a Monday. It's at 5:30. That is all staff has, and we wish you a happy holidays.
Can we see it before that?
Can you see what do you want to see?
The final development plan that they have showed.
But I can't.
The final development plan will not be there. It's just a workshop.
They're going to show it.
Put your mic on so we can all hear you.
I'd like to see what they show.
You would like to see, What is the agenda for?
The consultant will be presenting the results from the previous workshops and refining the vision statement.
Okay. So it is a presentation, but will they be
Correct.
prepared ahead of time that you could share with members of the board?
There should be a PowerPoint ahead of time which we can share, yes.
Okay.
And you said that was at 5:30?
Before
5:30, yes.
5:30.
If we may, briefly, we just want to introduce ourselves. We're the new city attorneys for the city. I know we've met some of you. I'm Gemma Torsivia.
I'm Zachary Good, and it's a pleasure to be working with you all.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you introduced yourselves. I had thought about, once I realized that you were sitting there, but the hearing had commenced, so I kind of let it go. But thank you. We appreciate your assistance in us getting through these issues, and welcome your presence. We had 2 for 1 this time, huh? All right, well, 2 lawyers is not a good thing, though, right? Because you can just conflict. Double trouble. Yeah, there's always a conflict. They don't agree on anything.
Staff has one more comment.
I'm sorry.
Staff is pleased to say that our GIS analyst developed a development and progress map, which we will send you a link to, and it provides all projects throughout the city that's been approved, that's under review, or that are being developed.
We would appreciate that.
Yes.
That would be very helpful.
The Act 1 that you're reviewing be on that map too?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Anything else? That's it?
Thank you.
Thank you. For the board members, I would like to say, welcome aboard, as we just spoke. Happy holidays to everyone. We've done a lot tonight, and I thank the staff for putting it all together. Obviously, we've been successful because everything's been recommended, so we all see eye to eye on this, which is helpful. Is there anything else a board member may want to say at this time? No comments?
Just welcome aboard and happy Thanksgiving.
All right, any motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Third.
Adjourn. Say, oh.